The Tuesday afternoon sun shone brightly through the tall windows of First National Bank. Inside, the usual lunch hour crowd filled the lobby. People stood in lines waiting their turn at the counter. Some checked their phones. Others chatted quietly with friends. The sound of keyboards clicking and papers shuffling mixed with soft conversations. Minji Park pushed open the heavy glass door and stepped inside. She was 12 years old, with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her backpack hung over both shoulders, heavier than usual today. In her right hand, she carried a small blue notebook that was worn at the edges from constant use. She stopped just inside the entrance and took a deep breath. Her heart beat fast in her chest. This was an important day. She had been planning for it all week. Minji joined the line behind several other customers. She shifted her backpack, feeling the weight of what was inside. For 2 years, she had been saving every dollar she earned. Today, all that hard work would finally go into her college savings account. The bank was busy. 3 tellers worked behind the counter, each helping customers. Security guard Mr. Thomas stood near the entrance, nodding hello to people as they came in. The manager's office door was open, and Minji could see someone working at a desk inside. Minji opened her blue notebook while she waited. Inside were pages and pages of careful writing. Every entry showed a date, an amount, and where the money came from. She had written everything down since she started saving. February 15th, paper wrote, $23, one line read. March 8th, babysitting Lee family, $40, said another. Page after page showed her dedication. Small amounts earned honestly added up over time. She thought about how it all started. 2 years ago, her parents sat her down at the kitchen table. They owned a dry cleaning business and worked long hours every day. Her father had immigrated from Korea 30 years ago. Her mother came 25 years ago. They built their life in America through hard work and sacrifice. Minji, her father had said that evening, education is the most important thing. We work hard so you can go to a good college, but you must also learn the value of money. You should start saving too. Her mother had nodded in agreement. Even small amounts matter. If you save a little each week, it becomes a lot over time. The next day, Minji asked Mr. Patterson down the street if she could take over the paper route from his son who was going to college. Mr. Patterson agreed. Every morning at 6 o'clock, Minji woke up to deliver newspapers. Rain or shine, hot or cold, she never missed a day. Then she started babysitting for families in the neighborhood. The Lee family hired her first. They had 2 young children who loved when Minji read them stories and played games with them. Soon, other families called too. On weekend mornings, she helped at her aunt's Korean restaurant. She cleaned tables, folded napkins, and helped serve customers. The work was hard, but her aunt always praised her effort. Every dollar went into a large envelope that Minji kept in her desk drawer at home. She never spent money on candy or toys or games like other kids. She had a goal, and she stayed focused on it. The line moved forward slowly. Minji was now third in line. She could see the tellers working. One was a young man with glasses who smiled at each customer. Another was an older woman with gray hair who looked tired. The third teller was a middle-aged woman with blonde hair and red lipstick. Her name tag said, Sandra Morrison. Minji watched as the young man helped an older gentleman deposit a check. They chatted and laughed. The gray-haired woman helped a young couple who were opening a new account. They looked excited and nervous. Sandra Morrison was helping a businessman in a suit. He had a briefcase and was depositing a stack of cash. Sandra counted it quickly, smiled, and handed him a receipt. The whole transaction took less than 5 minutes. Now Minji was second in line. Her palms felt sweaty. She wiped them on her jeans. Inside her backpack was an envelope containing $4,847. All in cash. Mostly small bills, 1s, 5s, 10s, and 20s. She had counted it 3 times last night to make sure the amount was correct. Her mother had asked if she wanted to deposit it in smaller amounts over several weeks. But Minji wanted to do it all at once. She wanted to see that big number in her savings account. It would make her feel proud of all her hard work. The customer in front of her finished and walked away. The young man with glasses waved Minji forward, but Sandra Morrison called out first. I can help whoever's next over here. Minji walked to Sandra's counter. She set her backpack down carefully and pulled out the large envelope. It was thick with bills. Good afternoon, Minji said politely. Her voice was quiet but clear. I would like to deposit this money into my savings account, please. Sandra looked at Minji, then at the envelope. Her friendly expression from helping the businessman changed. Her eyes narrowed slightly. She did not smile. Your savings account? Sandra's tone was different now, not warm like it had been with the man in the suit. Yes, ma'am. My college savings account. I opened it 2 years ago with my parents. Sandra took the envelope but did not open it right away. She held it, feeling its weight. What's your name? Minji Park. Sandra turned to her computer and typed slowly. She looked at the screen, then back at Minji. And what exactly is in this envelope? Money from my jobs. I've been saving for 2 years. It's $4,847. Sandra's eyebrows went up. $4,000? You're what, 10 years old? 12, ma'am. 12 years old with almost $5,000 in cash? Sandra's voice got louder. A woman at the next counter glanced over. Minji felt her stomach tighten. Something was wrong. Sandra was not acting like the other tellers she had seen helping customers. Yes, ma'am. I work 3 jobs. A paper route, babysitting, and helping at my aunt's restaurant. I've been saving everything. Sandra opened the envelope and dumped all the bills onto the counter. The money scattered across the surface. Some bills fell toward the edge. Minji quickly reached out to stop them from falling to the floor. Don't touch it, Sandra said sharply. Minji pulled her hand back. Her face felt hot. Other customers were definitely looking now. The busy sounds of the bank seemed to fade away. Conversation stopped. People turned to see what was happening. Sandra picked up some of the bills and held them up, examining them closely. She made a face like something smelled bad. This is a lot of small bills. 1s, 5s, 10s, all wrinkled and old. She said it loud enough for people nearby to hear clearly. That's because I earn them from different jobs, Minji explained. Her voice shook a little now. People pay me in different amounts. Uh-huh. Sandra did not sound like she believed Minji. She continued sorting through the money, making a show of checking each bill. The way she handled it seemed almost disrespectful, like the money was dirty. Minji stood frozen at the counter. This was not how she imagined this moment would be. She had pictured feeling proud and happy, watching her savings account grow. Instead, she felt small and embarrassed. Her hands trembled slightly as she gripped the edge of the counter. Behind her, the bank had grown quieter. More people watched the scene unfold. Minji could feel their eyes on her back. She wanted to turn around and run out of the bank, but she stayed. This was her money. She had earned it honestly. She had every right to be here. Sandra continued to sort through the bills on the counter. She was not being gentle. Bills crinkled and scattered. She picked up a $20 bill and held it up to the light, checking it like she thought it might be fake. Then she did the same with a 10, then a 5. Where did you say you got all this money? Sandra asked again. Her voice carried across the quiet bank lobby. From my jobs, Minji repeated. Her throat felt tight. I deliver newspapers every morning. I babysit for families in my neighborhood. I help at my aunt's restaurant on weekends. Sandra made a small sound like a laugh that was not really a laugh. A 12-year-old with 3 jobs? That's quite a story. It's not a story. It's true. Minji's voice was barely above a whisper now. And your parents know about all this money? Sandra crossed her arms. Yes, ma'am. They encouraged me to save for college. They encouraged you. Sandra repeated the words slowly, like she did not believe them. So they know you have almost $5,000 in cash? Yes, I keep it in my desk drawer at home. My mom counted it with me last night. Sandra shook her head. I've worked in banking for 6 years. I've seen a lot of things. Kids your age don't walk in here with thousands of dollars unless something is wrong. Minji felt tears starting to form in her eyes. She blinked hard, trying to stop them. She did not want to cry here in front of everyone. Nothing is wrong. I just want to deposit my savings. Did you take this from your parents? Sandra asked suddenly. Kids sometimes take money from their parents' business without asking. No. Minji's voice came out louder than she intended. Several more customers turned to look. I would never steal from my parents. They work too hard. Then maybe you got it somewhere else. Got involved with the wrong crowd at school. Kids dealing things they shouldn't be dealing. Sandra's eyes were cold. Minji could not believe what she was hearing. I'm a good student. I've never been in trouble. I just work hard and save my money. But Sandra was not listening anymore. She looked past Minji toward the manager's office. James, she called out. James, I need you over here. A man in his late 30s came out of the office. He wore a dark suit and a blue tie. His name tag identified him as James Chen, branch manager. He walked over with a concerned expression. "What's the problem, Sandra?" he asked quietly. Sandra pointed at the pile of money on the counter, then at Minji. "This girl just walked in here with almost $5,000 in cash. All small bills. Says she's 12 years old and earned it from jobs." Sandra's tone suggested this was impossible. James looked at Minji, then at the money. "I see, and what's your name, young lady?" "Minji Park, sir." Minji's voice trembled. The tears she had been fighting were making her eyes sting. "And you have an account here?" "Yes, sir. A savings account. I opened it 2 years ago with my parents." James nodded slowly. He seemed calmer than Sandra, but he also looked uncertain. "That's quite a bit of money for someone your age." "I've been saving for 2 years, sir. I work very hard." Minji pulled out her blue notebook from her backpack. "I keep records of everything. Every dollar I earn. The date and where it came from." She opened the notebook to show him, but Sandra spoke up again before James could look at it. "She could have written anything in that notebook. That doesn't prove where the money really came from." Sandra's voice was loud enough that everyone in the lobby could hear clearly now. The bank had gone almost completely silent. All the customers had stopped what they were doing. The other 2 tellers had paused in helping their customers. Everyone watched what was happening at Sandra's counter. "I'm just saying, we need to be careful," Sandra continued. "This could be stolen money or worse. We might need to call the police." At the word police, Minji's face went pale. Her hands started shaking. She had never been in trouble with the police. She had never been in trouble at all. She was a good kid who worked hard and followed all the rules. "Please," Minji said, her voice breaking. "Please, this is my money. I earned it. I didn't steal anything. I didn't do anything wrong." A single tear rolled down her cheek. She quickly wiped it away, but more followed. She was crying now, standing at the bank counter with her money scattered in front of her, and dozens of strangers staring at her. "I just wanted to put it in my college fund," Minji said through her tears. "That's all. I've been working so hard. Every morning before school I deliver papers. After school I babysit. On weekends I help my aunt. I never buy anything for myself. I save everything because my parents taught me that education is important." Sandra's expression did not soften. "That's a very touching story, but it doesn't change the facts. A child with this much cash is suspicious. James, I think we should follow protocol here." James looked uncomfortable. He glanced at the watching customers, then back at Minji. "Perhaps we should discuss this in my office." "No," Sandra said firmly. "I think we need to handle this properly. Out here, I've seen cases like this before. Kids taking money from their parents' business. Kids getting involved with drugs at school. Kids, excuse me." A voice cut through Sandra's words. It was firm and clear, with the authority of age behind it. Everyone turned to look. An elderly woman stepped forward from the line behind Minji. She was short with white hair and glasses. She wore a blue cardigan and carried a large purse. She looked to be in her 70s, and there was something fierce in her eyes. "Ma'am, please wait your turn," Sandra said quickly. "I most certainly will not wait my turn," the elderly woman replied. "Not when I'm watching you humiliate a child who has done nothing wrong." Sandra's mouth opened, then closed. James looked at the woman with surprise. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but this doesn't concern you." Sandra tried again. "It absolutely concerns me, and it should concern everyone in this bank." The elderly woman moved closer to the counter. She looked at Minji with kind eyes. "I know this young lady. I see her every single morning." Minji looked up at the woman through her tears. She recognized her now. Mrs. Hayes from Maple Street. She was one of the people on Minji's paper route. "You deliver my newspaper," Mrs. Hayes said to Minji, her voice gentle now. "Every morning at 6 o'clock. Rain or shine, snow or heat. For 2 years you've never missed a single day. Not one." She turned back to Sandra and her voice became stern again. "This child walks through our neighborhood in the dark of early morning delivering papers. I watch her from my window sometimes. She's always polite, always careful not to wake anyone. She works harder before 7 in the morning than most adults work all day." Sandra's face turned red. "That still doesn't explain—" "I'm not finished," Mrs. Hayes interrupted. "You asked where she got this money. She told you. She worked for it. Why is that so hard for you to believe?" "Because kids don't usually—" Sandra started. "Kids don't usually what? Work hard, save money, have goals?" Mrs. Hayes looked around the bank at all the watching people. Or is it that this particular child doesn't fit what you think a hard-working saver should look like? The words hung in the air. A heavy silence followed. Some customers shifted uncomfortably. Others nodded slowly. Sandra's face went from red to purple. I was just following bank policy. When someone comes in with a large amount of cash, especially in small bills, we have to ask questions. It's standard procedure, is it? Another voice spoke up. A man in his 30s stepped forward from the line. He held the hand of a small boy, because I was just here last week depositing cash from my restaurant. $3,000, mostly small bills, tips and daily receipts. You didn't question me at all. You smiled and counted my money and gave me a receipt in less than 5 minutes. Sandra opened her mouth, but no words came out. A woman with a baby on her hip spoke next. She babysits my 2 children every Thursday evening. She's wonderful with them. My kids ask for her by name. She's reliable, responsible, and mature beyond her years. Another person added, she helps at Soul Garden Restaurant. My wife and I eat there every Sunday. We always see her working. One by one, people in the bank began speaking up. Customers who had been silent observers became witnesses. They confirmed Minji's story. They defended her character. They pointed out the obvious truth that Sandra had refused to see. Minji stood at the counter, tears still on her cheeks, but now she was not alone. Strangers were standing up for her. People she had helped, people she had served, people who had watched her work hard day after day. James Chen looked around the bank lobby. His face showed shame and concern. He could see what this had become, what Sandra had turned it into. A child's proud moment had been twisted into a public humiliation based on nothing but suspicion and assumption. Mrs. Hayes was not done speaking. She stood firm at the counter, her small frame somehow commanding the entire room's attention. She looked directly at Sandra Morrison with eyes that had seen many decades of life, both good and bad. I've been banking at First National for 40 years, Mrs. Hayes said. Her voice was steady and clear. 40 years. I've watched this bank change managers, tellers, policies. I've seen a lot of customers come and go. She paused, looking around at the crowd that had gathered. Last month, I stood in this very line and watched you help Mr. Richardson. He owns the restaurant 2 blocks down. He comes in every Tuesday with cash from his weekend business. Thousands of dollars. Small bills just like this. You smiled at him. You chatted about the weather. You counted his money quickly and sent him on his way with a, "Have a nice day." Sandra shifted her weight from one foot to the other. Her arms were no longer crossed. Her hands fidgeted with a pen on the counter. 3 weeks ago, Mrs. Hayes continued, I saw you help the owner of the convenience store on 5th Street. He had a bag of cash, coins and small bills from his registers. You laughed with him about something. You processed his deposit without a single question. She pointed at Minji, who was wiping tears from her face with the back of her hand. But this child, who has worked harder than most adults I know, who has saved every penny for 2 years, who came here with honest money from honest work, this child you treat like a criminal. You accuse her of stealing. You threaten her with police. You humiliate her in front of everyone. I was just doing my job, Sandra said weakly. Following procedure. No. Mrs. Hayes shook her head. You were making assumptions, and we all know what those assumptions were based on. The words struck like a hammer. Several customers nodded. Others looked down at the floor, uncomfortable but understanding the truth of what Mrs. Hayes was saying. James Chen stepped forward. Mrs. Hayes, I appreciate your concern, but I assure you that First National Bank does not discriminate. Then why is this child crying? Mrs. Hayes interrupted, looking straight at him. Why did your employee treat her so differently than the adult customers I've watched her serve? Why did she immediately assume something was wrong instead of simply processing a deposit like she would for anyone else? James had no answer. He looked at Minji, at the scattered money on the counter, at Sandra's red face, at the crowd of customers who had become witnesses to something they would not forget. The restaurant owner who had spoken earlier stepped closer. My name is David Chen, no relation to the manager here. He smiled slightly at that, trying to ease the tension. My family owns the diner on Park Street. We deposit our cash receipts here twice a week, usually about $2,000 to $3,000 at a time. Small bills just like this. Nobody has ever questioned where it came from. He looked at Minji kindly. She helps at her aunt's restaurant. I know her aunt. Mrs. Kim runs Soul Garden. She's told me many times how proud she is of Minji. How this girl gets up before dawn for her paper route, goes to school, babysits in the evening, and still finds time to help at the restaurant on weekends. Mrs. Kim says Minji is the hardest worker she's ever seen. Adult or child? A woman with gray hair spoke up next. I'm Jennifer Lee. This girl babysits for my daughter's family. 2 children under 5 years old. My daughter trusts her completely. Do you know how hard it is to find a babysitter you can trust with your children? This girl is responsible, kind, and mature. My grandchildren love her. Another voice added. She's in my son's class at school. Honor roll every semester. Never been in trouble. Teachers love her. The security guard, Mr. Thomas, who had been standing by the door throughout the whole scene, cleared his throat. I've worked security here for 8 years. I've seen Minji come in with her parents before. Nice family. Always polite. I've never seen anything that would make me suspicious of them. Sandra looked around at all the faces. Her confidence had crumbled. I didn't know all of this. She didn't explain properly. She tried to explain, Mrs. Hayes said firmly. You didn't listen. You didn't give her a chance. You saw a young girl with cash and you made up your mind about what that meant. James' chin pulled at his tie, loosening it slightly. He looked stressed. This situation had gone from a simple transaction to a public relations disaster in less than 15 minutes. Perhaps we should all calm down and calm down? Mrs. Hayes's voice rose slightly. This child came here excited to deposit her hard-earned savings. Instead, she was treated like a thief. She was questioned, accused, and threatened, all while following the rules and doing everything right. And you want us to calm down? Minji had stopped crying, but she stood very still, unsure of what to do. Her money was still scattered across Sandra's counter. Her blue notebook was in her hand, gripped tightly. She felt overwhelmed by all the attention, all the voices speaking on her behalf. James took a breath. Mrs. Hayes, everyone, I understand your concerns. Sandra, perhaps you could finish processing this young lady's deposit while I speak with these customers. Wait. Sandra's voice was quiet now, almost small. She looked at the money on the counter, then at Minji. Where are your parents? Shouldn't they be here with you for a transaction this large? Minji found her voice, though it still shook. They're at work. At the dry cleaning shop. They can't leave during business hours. They lose money if the shop is closed. I told them I could do this by myself. I'm 12 years old. I thought I was old enough to make a deposit. You should call them, Sandra insisted. This is too much money for a child to handle alone. We need parental consent. Mrs. Hayes made a sound of frustration. She has an account here. You said you looked it up on your computer. Is there a note on the account that requires a parent to be present for deposits? James checked the computer screen. He shook his head slowly. No, the account is properly set up. She has full deposit rights. Then why are you still questioning her? Mrs. Hayes demanded. Sandra had no answer. She stood behind the counter, her earlier confidence completely gone. She looked like she wanted to disappear. David Chen spoke again. I think what's happening here is clear to everyone. This young woman came in to do something positive, to save for her future. Instead of being congratulated and helped, she was treated with suspicion and disrespect. That's not right. That's not how a bank should treat any customer, much less a child. I agree, said Jennifer Lee. My daughter will be very upset when she hears about this. We've been banking here for 15 years. I'm going to have to think about whether we want to continue. Other customers murmured agreement. James Chen looked genuinely worried now. This was not just about one transaction anymore. This was about the bank's reputation, about customer trust, about how the community saw First National. Please, James said, holding up his hands. Let's not make rash decisions. I promise you I will handle this situation appropriately. Mrs. Hayes, Mr. Chen, Mrs. Lee, everyone, I hear you. I understand your concerns. This should not have happened this way. He turned to Minji. Miss Park, I am very sorry for how you were treated today. That was not acceptable. Would you be willing to come with me to my office? I'd like to call your parents and speak with them, not because I doubt you, but because I think they should know what happened here. They deserve to hear it from me directly. Minji looked at Mrs. Hayes, who nodded encouragingly. It's okay, dear. Mr. Chen seems like he wants to make this right. But if you're uncomfortable, I'll stay with you. In fact, I'd like to stay with you regardless. Me too, said David Chen. And me, added Jennifer Lee. I'll come as well. said another customer. James looked surprised but nodded. Of course. Anyone who wants to can come. This should be handled openly. He looked at Sandra. Finish counting the money. Give Miss Park her deposit receipt. Do it correctly and respectfully. Sandra nodded, her face still red. She began counting the bills properly, no longer making a show of examining each one suspiciously. The process was silent. The watching crowd remained, wanting to see this through to the end. While Sandra counted, Mrs. Hayes leaned down to Minji's level. You did nothing wrong, sweetheart. Do you understand that? Nothing at all. You worked hard. You saved your money. You came here to deposit it legally. You should be proud of yourself. I am, Minji said softly. Or I was. Now I just feel embarrassed. You have nothing to be embarrassed about, Mrs. Hayes said firmly. The embarrassment belongs to the people who treated you poorly, not to you. David Chen added, When I was about your age, I helped in my parents' restaurant too. I know how hard that work is. 12-hour days sometimes, cleaning, serving, doing whatever needed to be done. My parents taught me the same lessons yours taught you. Work hard, save your money, invest in your future. You're doing everything right. Sandra finished counting. $4,847, she announced quietly. She filled out a deposit slip with the amount, processed it through the computer, and printed a receipt. She slid it across the counter to Minji. Minji took the receipt and put it carefully in her blue notebook. 2 years of work represented by a small piece of paper. She should have felt happy. Instead, she felt tired and confused. James Chen led the group to his office. Minji walked in first, followed by Mrs. Hayes, David Chen, Jennifer Lee, and 3 other customers who had witnessed what happened. The office was not large enough for everyone to sit, so some stood along the walls. James offered Minji the chair directly across from his desk. Before we call your parents, James said gently to Minji, would you like some water or something else to drink? Water, please, Minji said quietly. James poured water from a pitcher on his desk into a paper cup and handed it to her. She drank slowly, grateful for something to do with her hands. Okay, James said, settling into his chair. Can you give me your parents' phone number? Minji recited her mother's cell phone number. James wrote it down, then paused before dialing. He looked at everyone in the room. I want to be clear about something before I make this call. What happened out there should not have happened. Banks have procedures for large cash transactions, yes. We do need to be careful about certain things. But there is a way to ask questions that is respectful and professional, and there is a way that is not. Sandra crossed that line. He looked directly at Minji. You came in as a customer with a legitimate transaction. You should have been treated with courtesy and respect. Instead, you were treated with suspicion and hostility. That was wrong. On behalf of First National Bank, I apologize. Mrs. Hayes spoke up. An apology is a start, but what are you going to do to make sure this doesn't happen again? To this child or any other? I will be filing an incident report. Sandra will face consequences for her actions. But right now, my priority is making sure Miss Park and her family are okay. He dialed the number. After 3 rings, a woman's voice answered. Hello? Hello, is this Mrs. Park? Yes, this is she. Who is calling? My name is James Chen. I'm the branch manager at First National Bank. Your daughter Minji is here with me. She's fine, but there's been a situation I need to discuss with you. There was a pause on the other end. What kind of situation? Is Minji hurt? No, she's not hurt. She came in to make a deposit, and there was a problem with how one of our employees treated her. I think it would be best if you could come down here so we can discuss this in person. I'm at work. We have customers. Can this wait? James looked at Minji, who looked down at her hands. Mrs. Park, I really think you should come. This is important. Your daughter was very upset. Another pause. Let me speak to her. James handed the phone to Minji. Mom? Minji, are you okay? What happened? Minji's voice wavered. I tried to deposit the money like we planned. But the lady at the counter, she said I stole it. She said maybe I was doing something bad. She was really mean, Mom. Everyone was staring at me. She wanted to call the police. On the other end of the line, Mrs. Park's voice changed. The worry became something harder. She said what? She didn't believe I earned the money. She kept asking where I really got it. She made it sound like I was lying. I'll be there in 15 minutes. The line went dead. Minji handed the phone back to James. She's coming. Good. James set the phone down. While we wait, would you be comfortable showing me that notebook you mentioned? The one where you keep records? Minji hesitated, then handed him the blue notebook. James opened it carefully and began reading. His eyes moved down the pages slowly. Every entry was in Minji's neat handwriting. Dates, amounts, sources, everything organized and clear. This is remarkable, James said after several minutes. You've documented everything. 2 years of earnings, all accounted for. He looked up at her. You said you deliver newspapers. Which service do you work for? Morning Star Delivery. Mr. Patterson helped me get the route. And babysitting? I have 5 regular families. The Lee family, the Johnson family, the Martinez family, the O'Brien family, and the White family. Jennifer Lee nodded. That's my daughter's family. The Martinez family are our neighbors. They've used Minji too. They say she's excellent. James continued looking through the notebook. And you work at Soul Garden Restaurant? Yes, sir. My aunt owns it. I help on Saturday and Sunday mornings. I clean tables, fold napkins, help serve customers. Sometimes I help wash dishes. David Chen spoke up. I know Mrs. Kim, her aunt. She's mentioned Minji many times. Very proud of her. James closed the notebook and handed it back to Minji. This is impressive work ethic. You should be very proud of yourself. I was proud, Minji said softly. This morning when I woke up, I was so excited. I kept thinking about how my account balance would look with all that money in it. I thought today would be a good day. Her voice broke a little. Instead, everyone in the bank was staring at me like I did something wrong. The lady kept saying I was lying. She made it sound like I was a bad person. I've never felt so embarrassed in my life. Mrs. Hayes reached over and put her hand on Minji's shoulder. You are not a bad person. You are a wonderful young lady who works harder than most adults I know. What happened today says nothing about you and everything about the person who treated you that way. A few minutes later, there was a knock on the office door. James's assistant opened it. Mr. Chen, Mrs. Park is here. A woman in her late 30s entered the office. She wore jeans and a Soul dry cleaning polo shirt. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. Her face showed worry and anger mixed together. She looked around the crowded office, then went straight to Minji. Are you okay? She put her hands on Minji's shoulders, looking her over like she was checking for injuries. I'm okay, Mom. Mrs. Park pulled her daughter into a hug, then turned to face James Chen. I'm Helen Park. Now tell me exactly what happened to my daughter. James gestured to his chair. Please sit, I'll stand. Just tell me what happened. James took a breath and explained. He told her about Minji coming in with the cash, about Sandra's questions and accusations, about the scene in the lobby. He tried to be fair, explaining bank procedures, but Mrs. Park's expression grew colder with every word. When he finished, Mrs. Park was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice controlled but with steel underneath. My daughter has been saving for 2 years. 2 years of waking up at 5:30 every morning to deliver newspapers. 2 years of babysitting when other kids her age are playing video games or hanging out with friends. 2 years of helping at her sister-in-law's restaurant on weekends. She pulled something from her purse. It was a larger notebook, more professional-looking than Minji's blue one. I keep records too. Minji is a minor, so I track her earnings for tax purposes. Here. Every job, every payment, every date. All documented. James took the notebook and opened it. It confirmed everything in Minji's notebook, but with more detail. Tax information, copies of pay stubs from the newspaper service, receipts from families for babysitting, records from Soul Garden. Mrs. Park pulled out another folder. These are letters of recommendation. Minji applied for a Youth Achievement Award last month. She asked her employers and customers to write letters about her work. Would you like to read them? James opened the folder. Letter after letter praised Minji. Her reliability, her work ethic, her character. One letter from an elderly customer on her paper route said, In 2 years, Minji has delivered my newspaper in rain, snow, heat, and cold. She has never missed a single day. Once, when she had the flu, her mother delivered the papers because Minji was too sick. But the next day, Minji was back on the route, still recovering but refusing to let her customers down. Another letter from a babysitting client said, Minji is the most responsible young person I have ever met. My children adore her. She is always on time, follows our instructions exactly, keeps our home clean, and treats our children with genuine kindness. I trust her completely, Mrs. Hayes spoke up. I wrote one of those letters. Everything in it is true. James set the folder down. Mrs. Park, I am deeply sorry for what your daughter experienced today. This should never have happened. Sorry is not enough, Mrs. Park said firmly. My daughter came to your bank with honest money earned through honest work. She was humiliated in public, accused of stealing, threatened with police, all while other customers watched. Do you understand what that does to a child? I do. Do you? Because Minji is 12 years old, she still sees the world as basically good. She believes that if you work hard and follow the rules, people will treat you fairly. Today, your employee taught her a different lesson. She taught her that none of that matters if someone decides to make assumptions about you. The room was silent. Mrs. Park's words cut deep because they were true. What are you going to do about this? Mrs. Park asked. What are you going to do to make this right? Not just for Minji, but to make sure it never happens to anyone else? James looked uncomfortable, but he met her eyes. Sandra Morrison will face disciplinary action. I cannot discuss the details of employee matters, but I can assure you this will be taken seriously. Will she be fired? That decision is not mine alone to make. I have to report this to regional management, but I will recommend serious consequences. Mrs. Park nodded slowly. And what about training? What about making sure your other employees understand that they cannot treat customers this way? We will review our procedures and our training. This has exposed problems we need to address. Mrs. Park was not finished. She looked at James Chen with eyes that demanded more than just apologies and promises. Review your procedures? That's what every company says when something goes wrong. Then nothing really changes. She gestured to the people standing around the office. These people witnessed what happened. They stood up for my daughter when your employee attacked her. They're customers of this bank too. They deserve to know that their business matters to you. That you'll actually do something. David Chen spoke up. Mrs. Park is right. I have 2 daughters of my own. If this happened to either of them, I would want concrete actions, not just words. I understand, James said. What would you like to see happen? Mrs. Park thought for a moment. First, I want a written apology, not just verbal. A formal letter apologizing to Minji for how she was treated. Second, I want to know what specific steps the bank will take to prevent this from happening again. Third, I want to know what consequences Sandra Morrison faces. And fourth, she paused, looking at Minji. I want you to make something positive come from this. Use this as a teaching moment. Train your staff. Change your culture. Make sure every customer who walks through your door is treated with respect, regardless of their age or appearance. James nodded slowly. Those are fair requests. I can commit to a written apology. I will personally write it and deliver it to you within 2 days. The steps we take and the consequences for Sandra, I'll be transparent about those as well, as much as employee privacy rules allow. As for the training and culture change, that's bigger than just this branch. I'll need to work with regional management, but I promise you I will push for it. When? Mrs. Park asked. When will this happen? I'll make the calls today. I'll send the full incident report by end of business. I'll request an immediate meeting with regional management for later this week. Mrs. Hayes cleared her throat. Mr. Chen, I've been a customer here for 40 years. I've never been involved in something like this before. But I'm going to tell you what I told Sandra out there. I've watched her help other customers who come in with cash deposits, men in suits with briefcases, business owners with bags of money. They get smiles and quick service. But this child, who worked harder for her money than most of those men, got suspicion and accusations. Why is that? James looked uncomfortable, but he did not avoid the question. I think we both know why. And it's wrong. It's bias, whether conscious or unconscious. It's making assumptions based on how someone looks rather than treating them as an individual. It's exactly the kind of thing we should have trained against better. At least you're honest, Mrs. Hayes said. That's a start. Jennifer Lee added, I pulled my phone out during the incident. I recorded part of what happened. I wasn't sure if I would need it, but I wanted to have evidence in case things got worse. I have Sandra Morrison on video making accusations against Minji. I have the crowd reactions. I have proof of what happened. James's face paled slightly. I see. I haven't posted it anywhere, Jennifer continued. I haven't sent it to the news. I haven't put it on social media. But I will if this gets swept under the rug. I'll make sure everyone knows how First National Bank treats hardworking children. I understand, James said quietly. And honestly, I don't blame you for recording it. You were protecting Minji. I appreciate that you're giving us a chance to handle this properly before going public. Another customer who had been quiet until now spoke. His name was Robert Kim, and he was a lawyer. Mr. Chen, you should know that what happened today could potentially be considered discrimination, a pattern of treating certain customers differently based on protected characteristics. If Mrs. Park wanted to pursue legal action, she might have grounds. Mrs. Park looked at the lawyer with surprise. She had not thought about legal action. She just wanted her daughter to be treated fairly. Robert Kim continued. I'm not suggesting a lawsuit is the right answer here, but I think the bank should understand the seriousness of what happened. This wasn't just poor customer service. This was potentially discriminatory treatment of a minor. James nodded, looking even more stressed. I understand. Believe me, I take this very seriously. Minji had been quiet throughout most of this conversation. Now she spoke up, her voice small but clear. I don't want to cause trouble. I just want people to understand that I worked for that money. I didn't steal it. I'm not a bad person. Mrs. Park pulled Minji close. You're not causing trouble, sweetheart. You came here to do something responsible and grown up. The trouble came from how you were treated, not from anything you did. But everyone is talking about lawyers and discrimination and consequences, Minji said. That's not what I wanted. I just wanted to put money in my account. I know, Mrs. Park said gently, but sometimes when something wrong happens, we have to speak up about it. Not to cause trouble, but to make sure it doesn't happen to someone else. Do you understand? Minji nodded slowly. She understood, but she still felt overwhelmed by all of it. James looked at Minji with genuine regret. Minji, you came here today with $5,000 that you saved over 2 years. That's incredible. Most adults can't do that. You should have walked out of here feeling proud and accomplished. Instead, you were made to feel like you did something wrong. I'm truly sorry for that. He turned to his computer and pulled up Minji's account. Your deposit went through. Your account balance now shows $4,847. That money represents 2 years of hard work. 2 years of dedication. 2 years of sacrifice. That's something to be proud of no matter what happened today. Minji looked at the screen. Seeing the number should have made her happy, but it just reminded her of the scene in the lobby. Mrs. Hayes leaned down to Minji's level. Honey, I want to give you something. She reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. I'm a retired attorney. I used to do civil rights law. Now I volunteer with an organization that helps people when they've been treated unfairly. If you or your family need anything, advice, support, someone to talk to, you call me. Okay? Minji took the card. Thank you, Mrs. Hayes. You can call me Margaret, the elderly woman said with a smile. And I mean it. Anything you need. David Chen pulled out his wallet and handed Mrs. Park a business card too. My family's restaurant. If you ever need anything, please come see us. Meals on the house for Minji anytime. Jennifer Lee wrote her phone number on a piece of paper. My daughter will want to know what happened. She'll probably want to give Minji extra babysitting jobs to show support. But more importantly, if you need character witnesses or anything like that, we're here. One by one, the customers who had stood up for Minji offered their support. They gave their contact information. They promised to help however they could. They told Minji that she did nothing wrong. James watched all of this with a mixture of shame and hope. Shame at what his employee had done. Hope that maybe, just maybe, this could lead to real change. Mrs. Park, James said, I know this is a lot to ask, but would you be willing to meet with me again later this week, once I've spoken with regional management? I want to show you the concrete steps we're taking. I want you to see that we're serious about this. Mrs. Park considered it. I'll meet with you, but I'm bringing people with me. Margaret, if you're willing, and maybe others who were witnesses. I want accountability, not just private conversations. That's fair, James agreed. Bring whoever you want. This should be transparent. There was a knock on the door. James's assistant peeked in. Mr. Chen, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there are customers asking about what happened. They want to know if Minji is okay. Should I tell them anything? James looked at Mrs. Park. That's up to you. How much do you want shared? Mrs. Park thought about it.
Tell them Minji is fine.
Tell them we're working with management to address what happened. Tell them we appreciate everyone who stood up for her. The assistant nodded and left. Mrs. Park turned back to James. We're going to leave now. Minji has school tomorrow and this has been a stressful day. I expect to hear from you within 48 hours with that written apology. I also expect regular updates on what's being done. You'll have them, James promised. Mrs. Park gathered Minji's backpack and notebook. Come on, sweetheart. Let's go home. As they moved toward the door, James stood. Minji, one more thing. Minji turned to look at him. You did nothing wrong today. Please remember that. What happened says nothing about you and everything about the failures of the adults who should have treated you better. You're a remarkable young person. Don't let this experience make you doubt that. Minji nodded but did not say anything. Mrs. Park put her arm around her daughter's shoulders and guided her out of the office. The group of customers who had supported Minji followed them out. As they walked through the bank lobby, other customers who had witnessed the earlier scene watched. Some nodded respectfully at Minji, others looked at her with sympathy. A few people even clapped softly. Sandra Morrison was not at her counter. She had been sent home for the day. The other tellers worked quietly, keeping their heads down. When they reached the parking lot, Mrs. Hayes pulled Mrs. Park aside while Minji got in the car. Helen, I meant what I said in there. I'm retired now. I have time. If you want help navigating this, dealing with the bank, making sure they follow through, I'm available. This kind of thing is what I did for 40 years. Let me help. Mrs. Park felt tears in her eyes for the first time since arriving at the bank. Thank you. I might take you up on that. Please do. Margaret squeezed her hand. That girl of yours is special. She deserves better than what happened today. 1 week later, Mrs. Park received a thick envelope in the mail from First National Bank. Inside was a formal letter on bank letterhead, signed by James Chen and also by the regional vice president, Michael Torres. The letter began, Dear Minji and Mrs. Park, we are writing to offer our sincerest apologies for the treatment Minji received at our branch on Tuesday, November 28th. What happened that day fell far below the standards we claim to uphold. Minji came to our bank as a customer conducting legitimate business. She should have been treated with courtesy and respect. Instead, she was subjected to unfair accusations and public humiliation. There is no excuse for this. The letter went on to detail the specific steps the bank was taking. Sandra Morrison had been placed on unpaid suspension for 2 weeks and would be required to complete extensive bias and sensitivity training before returning to work. She would also be moved to a back-office position with no customer contact for at least 6 months. James Chen had begun implementing new training for all staff. Every employee would be required to complete a course on unconscious bias, with specific focus on age discrimination and making assumptions based on appearance. The bank was also bringing in an outside consulting firm to review their customer service policies and recommend changes. Most significantly, the regional office had approved the creation of a youth banking program. They would hire a youth banking coordinator whose job would be to help young customers understand saving, investing, and financial responsibility. They would also create special accounts designed for young people, with features that encouraged saving and provided financial education. The letter ended, We know that no apology can undo what happened, but we hope that by taking real action, we can show that we have learned from this incident. Minji's experience has opened our eyes to problems in how we serve our community. We are committed to doing better. We would be honored if you would meet with us to discuss these changes and provide input on how we can serve young customers better. Mrs. Park showed the letter to Minji. They read it together at the kitchen table. When they finished, Minji looked at her mother. Do you think they mean it? Or are they just saying what we want to hear? I don't know yet, Mrs. Park said honestly. But Margaret will help us make sure they follow through. And all those people who stood up for you, they're watching too. That Friday, Mrs. Park, Minji, and Margaret Hayes met with James Chen and Michael Torres at the bank. Jennifer Lee came too, along with David Chen and Robert Kim. They sat in a conference room and discussed the changes in detail. Michael Torres was a serious man in his 50s who did not make excuses. What happened to Minji was wrong. It exposed problems we should have addressed long ago. We're grateful to her, actually. She helped us see what we were missing. Grateful? Mrs. Park's tone was sharp. My daughter was humiliated. You're right. That was a poor choice of words. What I mean is that her experience, as terrible as it was, is forcing us to make changes we should have made years ago. That doesn't excuse what happened, but we want to make something positive come from it. They spent 2 hours going through the new policies, the training programs, the youth banking initiative. Margaret Hayes asked tough questions and pushed back on vague answers. She wanted specifics, timelines, accountability measures. By the end of the meeting, they had a written plan with specific deadlines. The bank committed to providing quarterly reports on their progress. They would track customer complaints by demographic categories to watch for patterns of discrimination. They would survey customers about their experiences. They would be transparent about the results. "What about Sandra Morrison?" Minji asked quietly. It was the first time she had spoken during the meeting. "Will she still work here?" James and Michael exchanged glances. Michael answered, "Sandra has worked for the bank for 6 years. She made a serious mistake. But we believe in second chances, paired with real consequences and required change. She's going through extensive training. She'll be in a position where she can't hurt customers like she hurt you. If she shows true growth and understanding, she might eventually return to customer service. But not soon, and not without proving she's learned from this." "What if she hurts someone else?" Minji asked. "Then she'll be terminated immediately. We've made that very clear to her." Minji nodded slowly. She did not look entirely satisfied, but she understood that this was how the adult world worked. Not always with simple answers or perfect justice. 2 weeks after that meeting, something unexpected happened. A local journalist named Sarah Park, no relation to Minji's family, heard about the incident from one of the customers who had witnessed it.
She contacted Mrs. Park and asked if she could write a story. Mrs. Park discussed it with Minji. "This is your story."
You get to decide if you want it told publicly. There could be benefits, bringing attention to these issues, helping other people who face similar situations. But there could also be difficulties. People might recognize you. You might get unwanted attention. Minji thought about it for several days. Finally, she said yes, but she had conditions. She did not want the story to be about Sandra Morrison or punishing her. She wanted it to be about young people who work hard and deserve respect. She wanted it to be about the customers who stood up for her. She wanted it to be about making positive changes. Sarah wrote a thoughtful article titled, 12-Year-Old's Banking Experience Sparks Change. It focused on Minji's impressive work ethic, the community members who defended her, and the reforms being implemented at First National Bank. The article mentioned Sandra's actions but did not dwell on them. Instead, it highlighted the bank's response and commitment to improvement. The article appeared in the local newspaper on a Sunday. By Monday morning, it had been shared thousands of times on social media. Local television news picked it up. Regional papers ran their own versions. The response was overwhelming. Hundreds of people reached out with their own stories of being judged or treated unfairly because of their age or appearance. Parents thanked Minji for speaking up. Young people told her she inspired them, but there was also criticism. Some people said Minji's parents should have come to the bank with her. Others said $5,000 was too much money for a child to carry around. Some accused the family of seeking attention or trying to make money from the situation. Minji found the criticism hard to handle. She had not asked for any of this. She just wanted to deposit her savings. Margaret Hayes visited the Park home one evening after Minji had read some particularly harsh comments online. She found Minji in her room looking upset. "May I come in?" Margaret asked from the doorway. Minji nodded. Margaret sat on the edge of the bed. "I saw some of those comments," Margaret said. "They're cruel and unfair. Why are people being so mean? I didn't do anything wrong." "No, you didn't. But here's something I learned during my 40 years as a lawyer. When you stand up for yourself, when you speak truth about injustice, some people will always find reasons to criticize you, not because you did anything wrong, but because your story makes them uncomfortable. It forces them to think about things they'd rather ignore. So what do? You remember why you spoke up? Not for attention, not for money, but to make sure what happened to you doesn't happen to someone else. You focus on the positive responses, not the negative ones, and you remember that hundreds of people have thanked you for being brave." Minji was quiet for a moment. "I got a letter yesterday from a boy in California. He's 13. He said he works at his family's farm stand and saves money like I do. He said his teacher made a comment about why he had so much cash, implying he must have gotten it wrong way. He said reading about what happened to me made him feel less alone, made him realize he wasn't crazy for being upset." Margaret smiled. "That's why your story matters." 3 months after the incident at the bank, First National held an event to launch their new youth banking program. They invited Minji and her family as special guests. The mayor came. Local business owners attended. News cameras were there. James Chen stood at a podium and gave a speech. 3 months ago, a remarkable young person walked into our bank with $5,000 she had saved through hard work and dedication. She should have been celebrated. Instead, she was treated with suspicion and disrespect. That day changed everything for First National Bank. He gestured to where Minji sat with her parents. Minji Park showed us our blind spots. She revealed problems we needed to fix. Today we're launching a program inspired by her story. This program will help young people like Minji learn about money, saving, and planning for their futures. It will ensure that every young person who walks into our bank is treated with the respect they deserve. The bank had hired a youth banking coordinator named Lisa Martinez. She was young, energetic, and passionate about financial literacy. She would visit schools, run workshops, and be the point person for young customers. After the speeches, there was a reception. Minji found herself surrounded by people wanting to talk to her. Some were young people who had their own savings goals. Others were parents who wanted advice on teaching their children about money. Still others were community leaders interested in starting similar programs. At one point, Minji slipped away from the crowd and found a quiet corner. She was exhausted from all the attention. She just wanted a moment to breathe. Sandra Morrison appeared beside her. Minji had not seen her at the event. She must have been in the back. "Hi, Minji," Sandra said quietly. Minji tensed up. She had not spoken to Sandra since that day. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to see," Sandra continued. "But I've been wanting to talk to you. To say I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry." Minji did not know what to say. "I've been doing a lot of thinking these past 3 months. A lot of training, yeah, but also a lot of personal reflection. What I did to you was wrong. I made assumptions based on how you looked and how old you were. I didn't give you a chance. I didn't listen. I was defensive and dismissive and cruel." Sandra's voice cracked. "I've been working in banking for years thinking I was good at my job. But I wasn't, not really, because being good at your job means treating every customer right, not just the ones who look like what you expect." "Why did you do it?" Minji asked quietly. "Why did you assume I did something wrong?" Sandra was quiet for a long moment. "Honestly, I don't have a good answer. Maybe because you were young and I didn't take you seriously. Maybe because you didn't fit my mental picture of what a big depositor looks like. Maybe because I was having a bad day and took it out on you. None of those are excuses. They're just explanations that don't justify anything." She looked at Minji with regret. "You came in proud of what you'd accomplished. You'd worked so hard. You deserved to feel respected and valued. Instead, I made you feel small and suspect." "I'm so sorry." Minji studied Sandra's face. The woman looked genuinely remorseful. "Are you still working at the bank?" "In the back office. Processing paperwork. No customer contact. Maybe someday I'll be allowed to work with customers again, but honestly, I don't know if I deserve to." "Everyone makes mistakes," Minji said slowly. "My parents taught me that. What matters is whether you learn from them. I'm trying to." "Really hard?" Sandra paused. "For what it's worth, watching what came from that horrible day, this program, these changes, the training, all of it. It's shown me how much impact we have on people.
How much responsibility we have.
I took that responsibility too lightly. I won't make that mistake again." Minji nodded. She still felt hurt when she thought about that day. But she also believed in second chances. Okay. I forgive you. Not because what you did was okay, but because holding on to anger doesn't help anyone." Sandra's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. You're a better person than I deserve." Mrs. Park appeared then, looking for Minji. When she saw Sandra, her expression hardened, but Minji spoke up quickly. "It's okay, Mom, we were just talking." Mrs. Park looked between them, then nodded slowly. "Okay, but Minji, people want to take pictures with you for the program launch." As Minji walked away with her mother, she looked back at Sandra once. The woman stood in the corner, wiping her eyes. Minji felt a strange mix of emotions, lingering hurt from what had happened, but also a sense of closure. The youth banking program flourished. Within 6 months, over 200 young people had opened accounts. Lisa Martinez held financial literacy workshops that were always full. The program got attention from other banks, who started similar initiatives in their communities. Minji continued her work. Paper route every morning, babysitting most evenings, weekend shifts at her aunt's restaurant. She added to her savings account regularly. But now when she went to the bank, Lisa Martinez greeted her personally. Other staff members knew her name. She was treated with respect. 1 year after the incident, First National Bank asked Minji to speak at their annual customer appreciation event. She was nervous but agreed. Standing at a microphone in front of hundreds of people, she told her story. "A year ago, I walked into a bank with money I'd earned through hard work. I was excited and proud. Instead of being celebrated, I was questioned and accused. It hurt, it was embarrassing. It made me doubt myself." She paused, looking at the crowd. "But here's what I learned. When something wrong happens, speaking up matters. Standing up for yourself matters. And when other people stand up for you, like Mrs. Hayes and Mr. Chen and Mrs. Lee and so many others did for me, that matters most of all. I also learned that change is possible. Real change. Not just apologies, but actual new policies and programs and training. First National Bank could have just said sorry and moved on. Instead, they did the work to make things better. Not just for me, but for every young person who comes through their doors." She smiled slightly. "I'm 14 now. I still work my 3 jobs. My college fund is growing. And when I go to the bank, I'm treated the way every customer should be treated, with respect. That's how it should be for everyone, no matter how old they are or what they look like." The crowd applauded. Many people stood. Minji saw her parents in the front row, both of them with tears in their eyes. She saw Margaret Hayes still attending events to make sure the bank kept its promises. She saw James Chen, who had worked hard to implement real changes. She saw Lisa Martinez and the young people whose lives the new program had touched. And in the back, standing near a wall, she saw Sandra Morrison. The woman was not in her bank uniform. She was attending as a guest. When their eyes met, Sandra nodded slightly, a gesture of respect and continued remorse. Minji nodded back. Then she stepped away from the microphone and returned to her seat. Her mother squeezed her hand. "I'm proud of you," Mrs. Park whispered. "Thanks, Mom." As the event continued, Minji thought about everything that had happened over the past year. The pain and embarrassment of that day in the bank. The support from strangers who became friends. The slow process of change. The unexpected attention and its challenges. The growth not just in her bank account but in herself. She still woke up at 5:30 every morning for her paper route. She still babysat in the evenings and worked weekends at the restaurant. She still carefully tracked every dollar in her blue notebook. These things had not changed, but she had changed. She understood now that the world was complicated. That good people could make bad mistakes. That speaking up for yourself was hard but necessary. That change took time and effort and persistence. That one person's experience could ripple outward and touch many lives. She was 14 years old, with a college fund that continued to grow. But more than that, she was a young woman who had faced injustice, stood firm, and helped create something better. Not through anger or revenge, but through simply telling the truth and giving others the chance to do better. As she sat in that crowded room, surrounded by people whose lives had intersected with hers in unexpected ways, Minji realized something important. That terrible day in the bank, as painful as it had been, had taught her lessons she would carry for the rest of her life. About resilience. About justice. About the power of community. About forgiveness without forgetting. Her story had started with a young girl and $5,000 in an envelope. It had become something much bigger. A catalyst for change, a lesson in standing up for yourself, and a reminder that every person deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. And it all began because a 12-year-old girl refused to accept that working hard and doing the right thing wasn't enough. Because she had the courage to deposit her savings despite the embarrassment. Because strangers chose to speak up instead of staying silent. Because a community decided that this child deserved better. The world still had problems. Banks still made mistakes. People still faced unfair judgment. But in one community at one bank, real change had happened. And it started with a girl who just wanted to save for college.